We knew we had to build this as environmentally sensitive as we could, because if we're going to ask our guests and our members to do everything you can to personally reduce your carbon footprint, we needed to do the same thing. My favorite part of working at the zoo is really the people that you meet and get to work with. Everyone's here because they really do believe in the mission of the zoo, and they want to make the world a better place for wildlife and habitats. As a conservation organization, we have to walk the talk, and we have to take the best care of our environment here and look at our effects on the environment and on the atmosphere. Look at what we're doing, how we're doing it, how are we improving, and then sharing that story with our guests and our community is really important to us. Every year we do a carbon footprint assessment, so we understand the carbon emissions that are created just by the operations here at the zoo, and we use that information to help guide us in doing better. So we're always looking at ways to be more efficient. So in areas like the Manatee Coast, Discovery Reef, the polar bear habitat, those are large volumes of water, so rather than dumping them on a schedule, scrubbing out that pool and filling it back up, those are all on life support systems. So there are buildings nearby where that water is constantly filtered 24 hours a day, every day of the year. So we're just reusing that water. We opened Polar Frontier in 2010, and we've never drained that pool since. So that's saving us a lot of water. In our process of planning for Polar Frontier, we needed to figure how we were going to build this habitat with big open pools of water that had to be either heated or chilled every day of the year, and use the lesser amount of coal-fired power that we could. And so that led us to geothermal, because we have a really, really robust aquifer that the zoo sits on. We knew we had groundwater that sits at a constant temperature, and so using that to slightly chill or slightly heat water and ambient air in the buildings would save us a lot of electricity. We're pulling water out of our wells, tempering it in our water tower, and then it goes over to Polar Frontier, so it's used to heat and cool buildings and the water that the bears swim in. So in the summertime we're chilling that water, and in the wintertime we heat it, and that water is in a continuous loop. And the good news is, at the end of that story, we got the geothermal system, and it paid itself off in just over 6 years. So that return on investment was actually quicker than we had imagined. One of the very first meetings that we had, which included the zoo director, animal care folks, the planning and design department, we knew we had to address climate change. And at that time in 2004, everyone called it global warming. And there was an argument at the table that we couldn't talk about that it was political, it would polarize our guests. So we set it aside and we continued meeting, and then we just changed our words and invited in experts. So we engaged with Polar Bears International, who have scientists in the field watching the Arctic sea ice melt. We also worked with the Barb Polar Research Center, and we have 3 different sets of the same sorts of data that show us that the ice is melting at a faster rate and that we need to be concerned. So from the early planning stages until we opened in 2010, it became more and more of a public conversation piece. And we also worked with a group of 10 zoos and aquariums across the country on understanding what our guests thought about climate change. We had a great sample of several thousand guests over 2 years, and we knew what they thought, so we knew how to frame our messaging so that we could speak to where their concerns lay, and I think that really helped us. People are passionate about saving the wildlife where they live, and we really want to help them do that. I think that's the heart and soul of what the Columbus Zoo is that we really do care about what's happening to the environment around the world. We're really fortunate right now that we have 3 really young polar bears who are so engaging and energetic and active that becomes the focus. We want people to be able to see young polar bears either in a zoo facility or in their native range for years to come. And at the end of the day, seeing that bear is that connection.